Welcome to Equal Inspired, the inclusive podcast, brought to you by Equal IT. Alexandra Ciobotaru joins us, who is the founder of Femme Lead, which is a community sharing the same name as the podcast, focusing on female leadership and role models. Femme Lead is on a mission to empower women to build fulfilling careers by providing a platform for inspirational content and hosting events that really explore topics to help women advance in their careers. Femme Lead is Alexandra's passion project and not the focus of her professional life, as she has a full-time position at Maersk Growth, which is the venture arm of the global logistics integrator AP Moller Maersk. She works as a program lead in the venture client team, looking to bring external innovation from startups to Maersk to support the company's transformation. Alexandra is actively promoting more women in STEM and has been nominated at the Nordic Women in Tech Awards on several occasions. In 2021, the Femme Lead Podcast was recognized in the top 5 Initiative of the Year in the Nordic region by the same organisation. In 2022, Alexandra was named one of the top 100 talents in Denmark by business newspaper Berlingske as part of their annual gala that recognises the outstanding professionals in the Danish business community. In 2023, after 8 years of working in startups and really building a thought leader profile in the ecosystem, Alexandra has changed her career path and has joined a corporation.
Thank you so much, Ellie. I'm super excited to be here. I want to tell everybody that I'm a big fan of yours. So I would say it's double the excitement to finally have a chat with you that now gets to also be heard by the world, because we've been in contact for a few times now, and I'm really inspired by your mission, and we've shared advice with each other, and I think that's what we both stand for: community and supporting women. So I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here, and likewise, so excited to give you this platform for you to share your valuable insights and your stories, because I know you're always asking other people about their journeys. And, you know, like we said before, having the opportunity to meet at Nordic Women in Tech Awards, that was amazing, because look where we are now, and I really value our conversations, and I'm super excited to ask you lots of questions today.
Let's go. I'm super excited as well.
You always wanted to build a life where you work passionately for things that matter. And if you reflect back, what do you feel initially inspired this?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I know I share a lot of insights and thoughts on LinkedIn. And sometimes, you know, I get in these conversations where people are like, wow, it sounds really like you're having a great career and a great life set up. And I talk about passion as key because I believe that in life we should really aim to do what makes us happy, and that in the context of work, passion really makes a difference for your fulfillment. This is why I say that I want to be passionate about what I do, and I want to invest my time and energy into setups that make me happy. My work philosophy is that I want to be happy at work, and I want to feel that, every day is moving me forward, and I'm learning and I'm becoming a better person. I mean, obviously, not every day is perfect, and I'm not I'm not finishing every day with like a smile on my face. But realistically, when I look back, I really want to have this feeling that I've been in a setup that is in sync with my values. I've been in a setup where I felt like I could constantly learn. And I've been in a setup where I worked with cool people, smarter than me, that teach me things every day. And this is what I'm striving to move towards. And that's kind of the experiences and experiments that I'm looking to have. And when it comes to, building that setup for yourself, I've always been looking into the startup scale-up ecosystem as an opportunity for people to work with high growth companies and high growth processes. What does that mean? It means that you are basically in the middle of the transformation from idea to business, from business to commercialization. You then go into strategy and you expand that idea to really other countries, continents, and so on. That growth phase is really something that motivated me. So for many years, I've worked in the startup scale-up ecosystem. And that growth journey was what I was looking for. And now I get to utilize that experience in a larger setup with more resources, with many more colleagues, and I get to help and support some of the startups to actually make a difference for a larger company with external innovation. And now, basically, that's kind of the setup that I have. I'm still very passionate about everything that I do, and I really think that, I know what my focus is in life, and as long as I can link that to the role and to the ecosystem that I'm in, I feel like I have a good mix of passion, focus, and also the right context for me to grow. And that's really what matters to me in this career stage.
I really love what you said there about being true to your values to give you that fulfillment, which at times I feel we have to reflect in order to really be in tune with that and what that means to us. And it can always grow over time. It can always develop, right, as well, what's important to us. But I think that COVID was a big point for a lot of people of that realization of what's really important. What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be doing moving forwards? I know for me personally, it was a big impact on actually then founding Equal IT. But for you, finding those non-negotiables for you that stay true to your values and help you feel fulfilled every day. What was that process of getting to that point? Because it can be really difficult for some people, the non-negotiables.
Absolutely. And I'm super happy you asked this, because there's no straight answer. And to clarify for everybody, you don't need to know this from the first day you start a new role. Like, let's be honest, the non-negotiables, your values at work, the way that you want to show up to yourself and to your colleagues every day, those are concepts that you need to learn and also grow into, meaning that you need to know yourself enough to realize, okay, this speaks to me, this is me, versus this is something that I heard someone did in a book, so let me try to utilize it as well. It might work for me. There's this area of, or I would say this stage in life where we experiment, and I've really had that experience growing my career within startups, where I tried a lot of different roles and I did a lot of internships and I went to all of the events. And let me tell you, it took a good 5 years to figure out who I am, who I want to be professionally, and what are my values and what I strive to do and who I strive to be every day. It wasn't a given context. So for everybody thinking, I don't know where to start, is okay. Let's start by defining the fact that you don't need to know. It's really a process. Finding your non-negotiables can start, first of all, by deciding that you want to have the reflection. I think, through interviewing others, but also through engaging with communities, people often tell you, I didn't spend time thinking about it. So if you don't spend time, if you don't take a decision to actually reflect on who you are, why are you here, what do you want to do in life, you're not going to be able to find those deeper answers. So let's start by taking the time aside to do those reflections. You can have those reflections by utilizing, the help of a coach, working with different communities, taking some personal development courses online. You can work with your mentor or your manager at work if you have that context. Or you can start with discussing with your group of friends. So you start somewhere by putting out there the question, okay, what is it that I want to do? Who am I and why am I doing this for, right? Some super basic questions about yourself, but very deep. So you start from there, right? And then what I really recommend that helped me is really to look for role models. So if you feel that you really resonate with someone, it doesn't need to be a celebrity. It doesn't need to be a leader or a business leader, so to speak, a celebrated business leader. It can also be a person you look up to, a role model within your community. Start having those conversations on how did they decide that X career was for them, or that being a role X was for them, or that becoming an entrepreneur, coming up with that idea, was something they wanted to pursue. So kind of be curious to find out why. Why is it that we're doing what we're doing? And then you'll see that some people really reflected, and they will help you ask the right questions. And this was something that made a big difference for me. I also work with a coach, so it didn't just come out of the blue. I also interviewed leaders while I was discovering who am I as well? So I started Femme Lead in the pandemic when I had a lot of free time on my hands, and I was like, what am I going to do with this free time that I used to give to other people? Let's give it to a community that I'm starting myself. And I got to learn a lot by interviewing leaders about questions that I also had about my career development. How cool is that? And then I started utilizing that tool and that channel and gathering more questions from the community and from people that were writing me, oh, I also want to know about this. Can you interview someone in the learning and development space? I would love to know more about this industry. So that's kind of how I also managed to grow the setup of my learning and giving it to others. So, there's always a place to start. And the last point I want to make on actually interviewing someone that discusses non-negotiables, you can go and find Alexandra Lung's interview for Femme Lead that discusses that particular topic. It comes in time. So you also need to try out some contexts and realize that they're not for you, and build internally that confidence to show up. And when you are presented with something that doesn't fit your non-negotiables that you've researched, learned, thought about, put in a context, you are able to say, I appreciate it, but this is not for me. And that step on saying no, or on saying, let's discuss this, I don't think this is the right setup for me, you can know exactly what you like or what you do not like, but if you do not have the confidence to stand up for yourself, it doesn't matter, because you won't be able to say, no, thank you, this is great, but it doesn't work for me. So consider that all of these learnings and all of these reflections, they also need to grow as you personally grow into your, let's say, inner confidence, that you can actually go in front of someone and say, this is not working for me, but I'm open to discussing possibilities. Because once you say that, from personal experience, I can confirm, people respect you more.
That is really, really powerful. Yeah, there's so much strength in actually being able to speak up, isn't there? And kind of walk away from things that don't fuel you and don't align with you. And it's not an easy thing to do. I actually listened to one of your talks a while ago as well, Alexandra, and you spoke a little bit about the North Star, aligning your North Star. And I really loved that. And I think it fits in really well with the idea of your non-negotiables and working towards that mission. You spoke a little bit about having a coach, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about this experience as well. So firstly, what were those initial feelings that led you to having a coach?
I started by first going to therapy to get some answers on topics that I knew I needed to start digging a bit deeper into. So this was how I started into the personal development journey, by having a therapist for a few months, and this happened during the lockdown. Then I realized that I kind of fulfilled the role of a therapist. I reached some answers. I also I worked with Adlerian therapy that goes into your childhood. So a lot of answers that I probably never got the guts to ask about were answered, which is really fantastic for your self-growth if you think that can really help you. There are many other types, but that was something that worked for me. And that kind of put an end to some, let's say, personal questions I had. But then the next question was, how do I grow into who I think I want to be, or into my potential? Because I think I have great potential, but what does that mean? How do you become that shining star if you still have fears, and if you don't have necessarily a support system that you believe can really help you? And in order to gain some clarity, I decided to work with a personal coach. The focus was actually personal development, but because I am very passionate about career development, my career and what I do for work is quite important to me. So it had to be a mix. And that's why I work with someone also to manage, for example, difficult conversations. Sometimes we think that having template on how to engage with these difficult conversations can help. That's why I also like to ask this question when I interview other leaders, like, how do you manage those conversations? But realistically, there's no template. Knowing people and knowing how interactions can develop will help you be a good person at work, in life, in the relationship with your friends. So it's not about the template. It's about knowing yourself and understanding the context, sensing the room, looking a little bit deeper than the words. Even though, I'm not encouraging to read subtext, but I'm encouraging to understand where does this answer might come from. So for example, when you get a difficult answer to a question that you thought it's very well placed, consider what other things might be underneath there that I did not look at. Because you don't know what the other person is going through, so you might as well be kind and kind of not judge the situation, right? And those sort of, let me tell you, this sort of ways of seeing a situation did not exist for me. I used to be very reactive, and I would get upset when things didn't go my way. And that's not the way I want to live. So I was like, if this is not the way I want to live, what can I do? Because realistically, you cannot control others, but you can control how you react to things. So let's work on how I react to things. And that's how my first coaching experience started. I was like, I'm having this problem and I want to be better at managing it. Where do I start? And realistically, it has been a very uncomfortable process. You realize the uglier parts of you that you do not show up with at an interview, but you know that all of us have parts that are not proud of, reactions that we are not proud of. And I think it's important to know where they come from and how can you, for yourself, be a better person and show up with more of your core values. Because I think deep down, we're all good people. We just need to kind of have the right context to show that. And unfortunately, some of us might have it easier, some of us might have it harder. So I think, if you feel that there's something missing for you, working with a coach can really show you how to navigate the process and also how to become the person you're supposed to become without going through all the, let's say, difficult journey. This was something that really, really helped me.
I'm so happy for you that you've had a really positive, enlightening experience in finding a coach because it's all about growth. Like you say, we have to really get uncomfortable before we can become a better version of ourselves. And it's always the way, right? We have to have those difficult conversations. We have to pick ourselves apart and our behaviors to understand the why in a lot of things. And I also want to say, Alexandra, the fact that you're very open about going to therapy is fantastic, because I still feel today there's a big stigma around going to therapy means a certain thing or you're labeled in a certain way. And there's a big negative stigma around it, when actually going to therapy is such a good way to get to know yourself and why you are the way you are. And like you say, to help you on this journey of self-development and progression. So for you, when it comes to actually recognizing, right, I want to now get a coach, what were those steps that you took to find somebody, and how did you, I guess, make sure that they were aligned with you and would be a good fit?
It's a great question, because it's really, frankly, it's really depending on what you expect from this sort of relationship, and also how open you are to maybe being uncomfortable. Because if you want to have a coach that would agree with you and say, this is something we'll work on, and kind of just praise you with like positive reinforcement of how the process goes, that's one way to go, but I don't think it's necessarily the best way. I think your coach should challenge you with the best of intentions, and you should feel that is the best of intentions. If you don't feel it's the best of intentions, then don't further continue that relationship. You need to be comfortable, but you also need to take responsibility for the fact that growth requires you to change, and change can feel different from person to person, and for some people it's very uncomfortable. And I don't think we emphasize enough the fact that we are in a transformation. Companies are transforming, the society is transforming, technology is transforming all of our lives, and we talk about change as if it's something easy. Change is very difficult, and we can see different examples of like generations, how difficult it is to change once generations start taking on some roles in the workforce, and how that clash looks like. In some cultures and in some countries it's very difficult, right? So let's just normalize the fact that change doesn't need to be easy. actually requires you to put in effort and to be uncomfortable at times. And it goes the same for your personal growth. I would definitely recommend that you look for someone that you feel comfortable disclosing anything that you feel is relevant for your setup. So if you think, I want to work with someone, but I will not tell them about this part of my life because I don't want them to know, maybe that's not the right fit then, because you shouldn't feel embarrassed and you shouldn't feel like you need to hide who you are, especially from a person that is paid to help you develop from within. You should feel very comfortable to share that, right? So first of all, look for this clarity on what sort of relationship do I want to have with the coach, and how open am I to sharing who am I and, the situation that I'm in detail without hiding anything. Then there's also the fact of understanding, what do you want from them? Because, I don't recommend having expectations as in, I need to feel like, I don't know, a very like Mel Robbins when I get out of here and become a motivational speaker myself. That's not the aim, but the aim is that you feel at peace, you feel confident. After a year of working with the coach, my self-esteem level, I cannot tell you what difference it made for me personally from within, to feel that I am amazing. And I'm not saying this as a joke. I feel great. Like, you cannot pay enough money for that. It's a feeling that you cannot really buy. You need to work on it. And it took me at least a year to get to that level of comfort to say, I've been working a year with a coach. I actually feel it. It doesn't happen overnight. Again, it takes time. Then you also have to have this expectation kind of set up. And after that, of course, looking at where to find a coach. I personally found it through community, so through my network. And maybe this is also a way to start, to listen to different interviews or to talk to your friends that might have contacts. And in a way, remember that, like you do also when you go to an interview for a job, you can also interview the interviewer. You can also be, I want to interview you as my potential coach to see if you are a fit. How do you work? How do you expect me to engage with you? How do you expect me to show up every call? Do you expect me to do a homework? Do you expect me to read before we meet? What are your expectations from our relationship? And then you figure out if it's the right fit, because similarly to going to a job interview, you also want to feel like you belong in that context. So don't take it as, oh, I found someone that's very well reviewed and a lot of people work with them, because it doesn't mean that it's the right fit for you.
It's not one size fits all. Just like with diversity, inclusion, right? Everyone is individual. You have individual needs. And again, it's just so refreshing to hear how your self-esteem is thriving and flourishing. And Alexandra, you truly are a role model in everything that you do, and that energy you have to juggle so many different plates from a community piece. But from your experiences through community, your career, through the coach, for anybody that's watching or listening, how can we best understand our strengths and our weaknesses to gain more confidence and to also overcome negative self-talk?
I think it starts from, again, reflection. So of course, we all have things that we are better at, but at the same time, remember that everything requires effort. So you're not going to become an expert if you don't put in effort. The same way, you also have areas where you are not going to be an expert in, and you're not going to become the best at. And that's totally okay, because you shouldn't be an expert in everything. That's not possible, right? So let's also clarify a little bit, what does it mean to feel like you don't do enough in an area? One way that I learned to identify my strengths is I ask for constant feedback. And this helped me in my professional development, because I definitely saw different points of view on how people review other people, let's say. So how we give feedback, right? It's very important when you get feedback to get clear feedback. So ask for details. What do you mean by that? Can you exemplify? Can you give me an example of a situation where I behaved or when I reacted like this? Ask for details. So you also put it into the context. And be aware that not every feedback needs to be taken into account. You will receive a lot of unsolicited feedback. And I recommend you to not listen to all of it, because it's not all good for you. You can also listen to like 15 people giving you feedback every day. It's like, why would I do that? So this is one way to discover your strengths and weaknesses, to ask for feedback. Reflection is another way. You can also do some sort of situational awareness experiment. Like, for example, if you think you are good at event planning, can you volunteer and see if you really are? Like, can you put yourself in a situation where you can understand if those skills are something that can really help you? Because that can also help in your career development, especially when you are at the beginning and you don't really know how to navigate. Put yourself in a situation that can mirror what it will look like in real life, without, of course, all the different responsibilities that come with the role. So if you can intern, or if you can work, if you can do some sort of setup of a day or two volunteering somewhere, I think that can really help. But then how can we overcome negative self-talk? I think, you need to really look at why do you think you have that sort of setup in your life? Like, why do you think you are prone to negative self-talk? Because it can come from a lack of self-esteem. It comes from a lack of confidence. And I think what I learned in the last 2 years was that I was really hard on myself, and that I should be kinder to myself. And here is where self-love was really the key for me. I wasn't giving myself the same warmth and love that I was giving other people when they were doing a mistake. So I was harder on myself than I was on others. And I was like, why? I go to bed with this person every day, thinking that, I think I did a great job. Why should I not put that forward? And why should I give myself such a hard time for trying, So very important to consider that if you are a perfectionist like myself, that at the end of the day, you are the most important person in your life. So you better be kind to yourself.
So how can we utilize this confidence that we gain through these reflections to be more at ease with who we really are when we're navigating our career?
I think that it's important to understand that you can change your mind as well. So, of course, don't stick to one script because you said these are my non-negotiables. This is something that I will. Non-negotiables are there to guide you, but if you find an opportunity that you didn't consider, then you also take time to reflect. Important piece of advice, for example, is if you feel that you want to think about it, instead of saying yes or no immediately, say, "Thank you so much. I would like to think about it." There's no rush to reply or to engage with an answer if you are not sure. Take your time. Give time to yourself to realize, you know what, I want to make a decision when I am more clear. I learned a lot about this from my network and my group, my core group, on not saying yes or no immediately. I used to be very, very fast. And also this rush that I need to know. What if they know I don't know? It's like, why is it so bad to say that you don't know? I work now in a new industry. I am learning every day, and some of the answers I really don't know. So thank God I have someone I can ask, How would it be to say, oh, sure, when I actually have no idea what I'm talking about? I mean, there's no reason to do it, honestly. Super fair to do that as well. And then when you navigate your career, there's stages. So for me, for example, starting in the startup scale-up ecosystem was a huge blessing, I think, because it played at my top skills. And at some point I realized, now I want to be in a more structured environment with more experienced peers, in a larger group of people where I can learn different skills from different people. And I also want to have a manager mentor setup where I feel I can grow beyond a certain, let's say, set of skills. How do I get that? So I was very intentional about my next career step, knowing that it needs to be in an environment that I describe with A, B, C, D, E. I put down that and on a piece of paper. I was like, what can this be? I was also lucky, and I mean, what is luck? But being at the right time, in the right place, you as the right person, that really worked for me, because I saw a job ad and I was reading, and I was like, oh my God, this is me. I am this person that they're describing here. How can I apply? How can I put myself out there to show that I really want to be in this environment? And I kind of took those steps. forwarded some conversations, really engaged as a person that is confident that can do the job, but is also very humbled and thrilled to join such a big organization because I think I can bring value, but I also know that the organization can give me a lot of value and a lot of learning. So like, how can we make this a win-win? And once you know that, it's really like it doesn't need to work all the time. Obviously, I'm a lucky or a positive example because it worked out for me. But at the same time, the clearer you are, or the more you are open to opportunities that are in sync with yourself, the more you will see them and the more they will show up. And that's why it's important to get out there and don't be too strict either, because then you can miss some of those opportunities that you didn't know can look like that. And this is really something that there's no recipe. Again, you need to show up. You need to get out of your comfort zone, talk to strangers, to new people, go to networking events without knowing anybody, because then you have to talk to someone you don't know. Like get out there. And that will really help you kind of balance out your setup for maybe your next career move.
There's a common theme throughout our chat, Alexandra, and it's really around community and the passion you have for that and how it's positively impacted you. I know when you was just 17, you were already volunteering for communities and different initiatives. And I'd really love if you could share how those experiences, everything community oriented, have also helped to shape who you are as a person today.
I honestly think that a lot of the skills that I have today, of course, beyond, let's say, professional skills I learned through school, I actually learned when I was volunteering. Leadership, community building, event management, stakeholder management, writing good emails, all of the things that you kind of progress and you use in your career, by utilizing them in another setup, especially when it comes to community building, in a setup that doesn't necessarily tie you to a particular company or paycheck, can really make a difference, because you have to be motivated from within. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So then you are more prone to discovery, to reflection, to opportunities, to learning, because your motivation comes from within. It doesn't come from any sort of external setup. Of course, you get a network. Of course, you make friends. But realistically, if you didn't want to spend time with them, you can also say, sorry, I don't want to spend my free time doing this for free, right? Like, you have a choice there, very clearly shared. It needs to be not non-binding within a payment setup or in a contract setup. Volunteering taught me a lot about leadership and about community building, and it taught me a lot about the fact that opportunities really come all the time, but it's up to us to take them. I have found jobs through volunteering. Some of my best friends I met through working together as students in organizations where we had to volunteer. I use volunteering as use cases for my business degree for school, because there's something really magical that happens when you go in to use your time for good and you don't expect anything in return. And I think that's really where my passion for Femme Lead and building this community also comes from. I know what it means to be in a community that supports you no matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter your background. What matters is that you showed up and you want to discuss that topic. Really something amazing about it. And then you can take it to the next level and also make, connections based on roles and based on areas of interest to learn, or based on next steps that you want to take in your career. But, for me, that was really a starting point for building a network and understanding that the world is bigger than we seem to believe. So there's so many communities you can tap into and learn from if you are motivated to know about them.
Who was that person before really taking community to the next level? Who was Alexandra?
I was so nice, but to the extent to which I would not say no to people because I didn't want to be rude. And I wouldn't recommend it. So who was I before I kind of did this self-discovery work? I was the same, but I had less boundaries. And I think this is important to note because it's, again, a journey. And now I do have boundaries, and now I am a better communicator. I think before I used to be extremely nice and kind of saying yes to everybody and putting myself lower on the scale. And it really taught me that in time, it doesn't make sense, because it can take a toll on your health, it can take a toll on your mental health, it can impact your way of being, your way of living, and also your self-esteem. So I would say there are, of course, many, many positives, but I want to focus on the learnings of putting yourself first and setting boundaries, saying no when you feel like it's a no, instead of trying to please people. That will just, in time, will not work out well for you. And as I said, you live with yourself 100% of the time, so you might as well take care of yourself.
I feel like when we have all of this passion and this energy for the work we do community wise, it has to also be sustainable and know that there's not 20 of us. We are one person. We
Absolutely.
have a certain amount of energy and commitment that we can do, as well as juggling everything else in our life and work and things like that. And really powerful lesson.
And just to clarify also how you can do this politely, because I think there's maybe a misunderstanding that you might sound rude. You can say no very nicely. I mean, you can say, thank you so much. This means a lot to me. So honored that you consider me a person you want to meet for coffee. In the next 2 months, I cannot commit to this meeting. I hope that you can follow whatever we're doing online, but I cannot right now be able to book anything. So for now, it will be a no, or whatever the setup is. Like, you can be very polite and say, you really appreciate the setup, but it's not working for you right now. Because truthfully, there's also not a reason to be like, worried about it yourself. But, this idea of comfort to say no, it's another thing that you need to practice. Because for some people it comes easily. And for some people like myself, it came really, really difficult. I was so uncomfortable saying no, until I was like, okay, but if I don't say no, I'm gonna ignore this. No, I need to start somewhere, right? So remember that you can also set boundaries and still be polite about it.
Thank you so much for sharing. You've mentioned a few times the Femme Lead community, the podcast that you have also, and I've been following that for a very long time. I absolutely love what you stand for, the community piece, the events, the amazing interviews. It's a really, really wonderful place. I'd love to know your own experiences from conception to launch of Femme Lead and how that looked for you.
Well, it was actually I'm very happy you're asking this question. So thank you for putting a spotlight on Femme Lead, because it is a passion project. So I do it in my free time on top of my daily job, which sometimes can really be a lot. So I'm balancing also how I show up for myself to do a passion project. And I want to be honest, because I think there's this understanding that you have extra time in a day. No, I don't. I have the same hours in a day like everybody else. I just prioritize it differently. And sometimes I'm very tired. So that's something that I think people should understand. I started Femme Lead from the wish to create a safe space for women to discuss their career development plans and to have role models to follow. Because in my own career development journey, I had many questions and I didn't know who to ask for support. But at the same time, I had some very cool women in my network that I admired. So during the lockdown, the first lockdown of the pandemic, I was like, I want to build this. Now I have a lot of time on my hands. What can I do? And I started listening to podcasts, and it was so refreshing to just have headphones or just let the podcast run and learn while I was doing something, or what I was like, okay, chilling or whatever. And then I was like, maybe I should do a podcast. Maybe I should interview the women that I admire about their career development, because I'm super curious how they did it. How do you become a manager of, I don't know, Africa for a corporate? How do you move there? How do you do that? How does that happen in real life? So I started by having this setup of interviewing people I admired. Then it became a bigger community. Now we have a newsletter, we have a platform for career development courses. We have, of course, the podcast that is launched every 2 weeks with new episodes. Then we also have events. We started having physical events in 2022 in Denmark, and we're planning to expand that as well. And at our events, we also collaborate sometimes with companies. So we also have a partnership track where we try to collaborate with companies that want to support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, the topics are about career development. So it can be anything from how to negotiate your salary to the role of DEI in recruitment to actually discussing career progression. And I'm very excited that the community grows, and we are now professionalizing the organization. So it's an exciting journey. But of course, my passion really comes from providing role models for the next generations of leaders and the fact that we need more women in leadership positions. So we might as well put a spotlight on them and encourage them to get a seat at the table.
That is so powerful. It's so important. We need to be shining that spotlight. I admire everything that you're doing to be on that mission as well. And throughout this journey that you've been on, what have been some of the skills you've had to learn in order to take this to the next level and to be continuous and resilient with it?
Well, I think a skill is to balance the expectation on what the community is and what you can do, because of course I also work with a team and we are all doing this voluntarily on top of whatever setup we have in our daily life. So that's a skill, to balance a passion project with the job and also with your own private life. I still take time for myself, and I'm very adamant on not spending all of my free time on my passion project either. That's one skill. Then, of course, you have all the technical skills. I learned to do many things online. So here I am also editing and working, with podcast producing. That's really cool. And then, of course, you do the entire part of stakeholder management that really helps me throughout my work as well. It's really cool to connect with all of these leaders, talk to them, put a spotlight on them, but also understand how they would like to show themselves to the world. Because what I'm doing is also promoting their thought leadership. When I talk to you, I'm promoting you, Ellie. My interest is for you to look good. And this in itself, it's a skill. So I'm really happy that I started to be a better manager of others' thought leadership focus, because I think, you need to ask questions. You need to ask each of your guests, what do they want to take out of it? And in the beginning, I was more focused on, it's my podcast, the community, this is awesome. But no, the focus is on you. So I really learned the skill of, managing someone else's focus for their own professional development, right? It's something that I think now is very useful and very, very good to know about.
It's really cool to hear the new skills that you've picked up on. And again, anything that you do externally outside of work, you're only going to learn, you're only going to grow from doing those things. So I really invite everybody to give it a go, whether it be volunteering or reaching out to a nonprofit. Actually just have that conversation and see where it can take you, because you'll thrive so much in your career. And you can see from Alexandra's story and the great things she's doing, how her career is continually going to the next level. And you spend a lot of your time interviewing world leaders, but I'd really love to know from your side, what advice would you share to inspire the next generation of leaders?
The first thing I would share is to not compare your chapter 1 with someone else's chapter 10. And what I mean by that is that your experience is your own. So you can't look at someone who's 10 steps ahead and say, I'm not doing enough. Because realistically, you can't be comparing your journeys. Focus on yourself. Focus on where you are from yesterday to today. That's lesson number 1. Stop comparing other people's journeys. It's not going to look the same, and it shouldn't. Then there's also the idea of taking charge of your own life. You should literally stop letting other people tell you how or why you should be doing things, but rather look within and figure out what is it that you want to do. And everybody will give you feedback. Like I said, just don't take everything seriously, because realistically they are not you. So you need to kind of focus really, really on yourself. I think, building resilience and confidence is really a step forward to really finding the right answers for yourself within and not outside. So definitely use the opportunity to learn, be curious, and, you do the self-reflection rather than ask for answers externally, because you're going to find some of them, but most of them will be through someone else's lenses. And really, what you need to do is to focus on yourself. And of course, something that I learned through interviewing many role models is that I always ask them if they would, what is the best piece of advice that you would recommend to people, and also if you would change something looking back. And these two questions have to do with your reflection as well. And all the people I've interviewed, more than 50, almost 60 now, none of them talked about how much working hours they put in. They all talked about the impact they left on the world and on other people. So remember that it's important to focus on what you do, but more fulfilling is to have a higher goal, is to have a bigger vision, and kind of feel it rather than think it. And this is something that you won't learn at business school, because I went to business school and no one talks about it realistically, building a career based on fulfillment. But when you will become experienced and you will be interviewed, the first thing you're going to tell to a younger person is not, oh, you should work late because this will really help you in your promotion. You will tell them, have other interests. Look for bigger things in life. Look for inspiration. Look to do good in life. Those are the things you're going to promote, right? So there's something there about how we see professional life and personal life. And I think we should definitely keep in mind that there's something bigger than us. And it's great to have a focus on development, but it's even better to have a focus on fulfillment. And that comes from all parts of life, not only from your working setup. And I think I'll leave it to that.
That is really, really powerful, Alexandra. Thank you so much for sharing such valuable insights. It really has been a joy speaking with you today. As always, I really, really enjoy our conversations. And just finally, how can people get involved with Femme Lead?
Thank you for asking. So I recommend everybody to go on FemmeLeadPodcast.com and then listen to some of our interviews so that they get also the inspiration from all the guests that have joined us. I think we try to focus on each episode on a different topic, and some of the latest ones are about career progression, career change, career break. So maybe there's something there for people to also learn from. We have an email address that we use, hello@FemmeLeadPodcast.com. So if you want to write us anything, if you want to get in contact, if you want to even look for helping us within the team, we really encourage you to write us there. And then, of course, follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, on Instagram. We also have a Facebook page. And then we are having a newsletter that we share monthly with career advice and inspiration. And that you can also find on the website.
Brilliant. So everybody, check all of that out. Get in contact with Alexandra and the team. And like I say, it's been such a joy speaking with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ellie. I'm so happy that we got to do this. And I'm really thankful that you invited me to the podcast, because I really felt so comfortable and really inspired by your journey. So thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. And we hope you're feeling inspired. If you are, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, and join us on our mission to create a diverse, inclusive, and equitable universe. This podcast is brought to you by Equal IT, a mission-driven business working to diversify tech teams through refined talent acquisition, complemented by diversity and inclusion consulting. As an Azure Heroes inclusive leader, we aim for teams to cultivate a strong sense of belonging and equity. Find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We welcome your feedback, questions, and would love to hear from you. Join us next time on Equal Inspired.